Assalamu alaikum. So, this is kind of a weird thing to talk today, and I think we're going to really focus a lot on this kind of contest between big and little today. And you have to understand, it's a strange thing to talk about the small things in Dubai, where everything is astonishingly big. I mean, this is my first time in Dubai, not my first time in the Emirates, but my first time in Dubai. And I have to say, when you look it up online, it's like some kind of science fiction city, right? All the newest, most amazing, biggest stuff here. I come from Texas. Everything is supposed to be big in Texas. Please, you make Texas look like a small little place. And the most astonishing thing, the thing that's best about Dubai is, it's not just a dream for you, you're making it real. You're building towers in ways that people could only dream of before. And, I mean, you build islands. Who does that? This is an astonishing thing, and something I want to think about today for a little bit. Because you've grown from this small place not very long ago, a generation ago. This is Dubai. 15 years later, it's astonishing. And today, and more and more and more stuff. So why? Why do you do that? Why do you make this stuff? And I think there's one reason, and it's an important reason to think about before we begin talking about what I'm here to talk about today. Charles Eames says that design is a plan for arranging elements to accomplish a particular purpose. So what's the purpose of Dubai, this city that is so much about design? I think it's because if you build a big tower, if you build a big space, people will come and hear you. That thing that you build creates opportunities. It creates opportunities for people to work together and to come find out about you, because people have small views about small places. You're building an infrastructure for the future, an infrastructure for connection, an infrastructure that's making you players on a world stage. Because you need a voice. You need a voice so people can hear you. So I want to think for a little bit today about classrooms, and about what classrooms tell us about the people who are in them, and about maybe ways to build a better classroom in the future. And I think it's a little thing, but a little thing that's very, very important. So what do classrooms typically show us? I mean, if you think about them, if you think about their structure, they've often told us one thing. They've told us that there's one person in authority, there's one voice, and there are all of these people who don't have access. They don't have access to an infrastructure. They don't have a voice, right? And what we do in those classrooms is really we process students. We process them through as though they're a factory. It's the reason that sometimes, in fact, it's difficult to tell the difference between a classroom and a factory. Because for a long time, we've just wanted a few very small things from our students. We've wanted them to be there, we've wanted them to be compliant, and we've wanted them to be uniform. We've had a small vision for what students could be. And that small vision was because we really wanted to turn them into gears for the system, into infrastructure. We had to build an infrastructure, and we needed them to be parts of that, so that a very elite few could have a voice, so that just a few people could live at the top of a tower. In fact, Frederick W. Taylor, the first sort of management guru, in his book in 1911 says, in fact, this is exactly what we should do to people. We should turn people into replaceable parts, just like you have on an assembly line, so that you can move people in and out of the same system over and over again. That's what people are meant to do. They're meant to be sort of fodder for these machines, these mechanisms. And so our goal in education then is to make people look as similar as possible, to erase differences and to make them interchangeable parts. That's a small view. It's a view that turns people into things that aren't human anymore. And I guess today what I want to ask, at the beginning of the 21st century, do we really need to be turning people into that anymore? Do we really need more bricks? I don't think so. And I think it's because we have some amazing things. The classrooms of today are very often spaces that are just about rhetorical questions. Questions that you ask because you already know the answer. In fact, the answer's in the back of the book, isn't it? It's right there. The odds are right there for you. We already know the answers to the questions we're asking, so they're purely rhetorical. But I'm not sure that those questions are relevant in a world that's changing so quickly. Those questions, the questions for which we already know the answers, suggest that the world is going to stay the same, and that those answers are going to be the same generation after generation after generation. But that's not the world we live in. I mean, can you imagine a world where you could have a device that you could take out of your pocket and do video chatting with people you love other places? Can you imagine a world where you could have a media library at home with all the world's knowledge in it? Can you imagine digitized learning so that you could kind of learn from all of these amazing things? Can you imagine a machine that would help you find answers? I mean, for these people, for people who were meant to be cogs, that was science fiction. And the sort of status and the accessibility and the possibility that those technologies would allow those people, for them, that was science fiction. For us, it's just daily life. And if that change has already happened, if that world has already transformed, then don't we need to reimagine the way we build our schools? I mean, right now, for example, think about this amazing infrastructure piece. 5 billion people have access to mobile phones. By the way, that's more people than have access to toothbrushes. 3/4 of the world's population is already connected. And that means that we're not this kind of fragmentary system of individual little places. It's not small places anymore. It's large places. It's what we've heard about all day today, about crowdsourcing, about the possibilities of connecting with people even far away. That small vision for our students won't last anymore. We need a bigger vision. We need a vision because today, it's not that we're small little people in small little places. The technologies that we have, and especially the technology of mobile phones, which allows people, even in some of the poorest countries, to communicate, and to communicate specifically because there's not already an infrastructure, because the mobiles allow them to communicate everywhere. It's a dream that humanity has had for a long time, the ability to transcend boundaries. And what it means is that even the smallest people now live at the top of the highest penthouse, the tallest tower ever built in the history of humanity, because that infrastructure is already there. Seth Godin, just the other day, said this at a meeting, and I think it's brilliant. People aren't going to pay us any longer to give answers they can look up. They'll only pay us to solve problems that don't already have answers. If that's the world that I need to prepare my students for, then I've got to change the way I teach them, and I've got to give them more opportunities. This is the great lesson that Sugata Mitra has taught us, right? With his hole-in-the-wall experiment, which put networked computers in the walls of slums in India first, and then in other places around the world. And what he discovered is there are no small children. Give them access, and they can change the world. That's all they need. Two things. They need access and community, because learning is a self-organizing system. If you give them access, people will learn around it. And that system of building access and community means that everything we do in our classes has to be about building access and community for our students. And one of the greatest tools for that is this little device that you can carry around in your pocket. We need to build towers for people, give them access, even people who don't have it now, because those people have answers that can solve the most important problems in the world, problems for which the answers are not already in the back of the textbook. And when we say, what can students do? If we're treated in the old model and say that's a rhetorical question, all that question is demeaning. But if we ask that as a real question, the possibilities are astonishing. After all, we now have a generation of students who carry around a movie studio in their pockets, a recording studio in their pockets, a printing press in their pockets. And all of these studios have access to the entire world. It's what allows a student in his bedroom in South Korea to record a shredding version of Pachelbel's canon that's viewed by more people on YouTube than live in his entire country. It's what allows gamers playing this game called Fold It, which is about protein folding to solve a problem that supercomputers worked on unsuccessfully for 10 years. They figured out how a protein folds that's part of the AIDS virus, and they solved that problem in 2 weeks. That's an astonishing thing. These are real changes in the real world. It's something that allowed a couple of students at my university, 2 girls, Brittany and Samantha. Brittany's 17, she's in Romania, and she goes to a safe house for women who have been trafficked sexually. And she realizes they're her age. And what they didn't have was they didn't have access. And she's 17, she thinks, what can I do? There's not much that I could do. But she starts a movement, the Red Thread movement. And I would invite you to go to their website. It's amazing stuff. What she did is she made a bracelet, and she sold it, and then another one, and sold it. She and her friends started making these bracelets and selling them so they got enough money they could start buying women out of slavery. So they could start buying education for women, so they could build a tower so they could have access. She was 17 when this started 3 years ago. And now there are Red Thread movements in more than 55 universities in the US, and places selling them all throughout the world, these bracelets. So far to date, she and her friends, and then the people that they've rescued, there are thousands of women whose lives have been changed because this one girl had access and helped provide that access for other people. These 2 girls had access. These 3 girls, these 5 girls, these 10 girls, more and more. And it's changing the world. And if you ask that question, what can our students do? Then you have to ask another question, right? What are they going to do in your classrooms? And again, that's not a rhetorical question. If you build your classrooms so that it's just a space where they can answer what's already been answered, you're thinking small about students. You're thinking small about the possibility of humans. What could they do? What could they do if instead of just wasting their energy generating stuff that we already know, they built the future? That's something exciting. This is not a world that's just about consuming information anymore. This is about students who are going to be curating things in your classrooms and collaborating and creating things that you've never seen before. And that architecture is the architecture we have to build for them. So don't tell students, shut this thing off and leave it outside because it serves no purpose in my class. Tell them, use every tool you have that connects you to the world, that connects you more with other people. Because if you are connected, if you have community and access, my friend Sugata Mitra says, you can change the world. So start small, but dream big, and build an infrastructure for big to happen for your students as well. Because already they're connected to the whole world. And now they just need to make it happen. Thanks very much.